Hey everyone, C-Stan here with the Lord of the Rings The Living Card Game. I've had a lot of requests for some two-handed power decks, and well, given the popularity of my solo Boromir deck on RingsDB, I figured I'd make a two-player version of it, or two-handed version. It's more of a two-handed deck, just based on how many cards are meant to go on the other deck than the deck they're included in, versus two-player decks, which are, I would classify more as two decks that they complement each other, but they mostly do their own thing. So they use a lot of Doom cards, like Deep Knowledge, Legacy of Numenor. You get a bunch of resources up at the beginning, and you get Boromir off to a very strong start. And you have Lower Aragorn there to reset the threat back down to the first turn level after you play all your Doom stuff. So here I've played Deep Knowledge already. I forgot to actually start the round. Okay, so now I've started the round, and I've got my resources up. And you'll notice that I've actually left 3 orcs in the staging area for the setup. And the reason I'm doing that is because these two decks are just so totally insanely powerful that they can handle 3-player Carn Doom with just 2 decks. So you'll get to see that, hopefully, if I succeed here. And yeah, it just goes to show the power when you actually have 2 decks focusing all on buffing up Boromir. You can handle a whole extra deck's worth of encounter cards in one of the hardest quests ever released. And it's worth pointing out that these 2 decks are not designed with with Carn Doom in mind. They are really meant as sort of rule them all type decks. For example, one of the decks has Eowyn, who really doesn't contribute much to the early part of the quest, which is the most crucial. She battle quests for just 1. And her ability to boost her willpower doesn't do anything. So, if I were building these 2 decks with Carn Doom in mind, I might have just replaced her with Beorn, for example, who could battle quest for 5, and save a lot of my threat raise in the early turns. All right, so we got lucky. We got 3 Gondorian fires on Boromir out right away. Of course, they're not too useful until he builds up his resource pool. The Legacy of Numenor is really helpful. It allows us to play Arwen and Asphaleth right away. Arwen is important because you really want to get Boromir Sentinel as soon as possible. Because with the amount you're raising your threat, you're not going to be able to avoid engaging enemies with both players. So Boromir needs to be able to defend attacks made against the second player. So there's 3 copies of Arwen in the Spirit deck, and there's 3 copies of the Dunedain, the Signal, in the leadership in the Boromir deck. To give him Sentinel right away. Okay, so here we flip probably the worst card to ever see on your first turn, the flip Thowardir Treachery card. So I'm kind of debating what to do at this point. I could defend with Boromir, but he only has 3 defense. He gets a bonus of 1 from Arwen. Now, you'll notice in the Spirit player's hand, if we go back to it, there's a copy of Blood of Numenor there, which should have been played. There's no reason not to play it. I must have just overlooked it. So what I'm going to do is cancel the first one and just we flip up another one. So I'm going to, I guess, kind of do a retcon and play that Blood of Numenor. There's no strategic reason for not playing it. I just, for whatever reason, didn't see it in the hand. So, all right. So we flipped Thaurdir. He made his attack, and Boromir boosted himself up with Blood of Numenor to give himself +4 defense, which brings him at 7 with Arwen. So there was no shadow effect on Thaurdir's attack, so it's all good. All right. So we compare our questing with theirs. We got 12 to 10. I could boost Boromir's attack up more here. Okay. We do have to engage all the enemies. So I still have to put progress on the quest. I'm just thinking about this here. Alright. So we make 2 progress. I decide not to buff up Boromir. All the enemies have -10 engagement cost because of Thaurdir. So they all engage. And Boromir's got to defend them all here. So I'll buff him up. He's got 6 defense now. Just questioning if I should buff up his attack first instead, because that way I might be able to kill some of them. Okay. So that gives me +2, +3, that's +5 attack. So he's at 8, which is the amount needed to kill off those guys. And then I give myself +1 defense, so I'm at 4 defense. Okay. And I raise my threat. I don't bother actually readying and re-exhausting Boromir. I just raise my threat to defend. So that shadow was raised my threat by 2. This one, they've got to go in the staging area. Raise my threat again. I'm Sentinel, so I can defend this. That shadow does nothing. And then I defend the last attack. Alright. And he gets +1 attack, but that doesn't hurt Boromir. Okay, and I can ready and attack back, killing the 2 enemies that are engaged with me. And you'll see that I'm going to bring myself right up to 48 threat. That's on purpose, because I'll be able to lower it again right in the refresh phase here. Okay. So those shadow cards need to get discarded. I couldn't kill those enemies. Boromir doesn't have ranged. At least not yet. Okay. Refresh. Now, during the refresh phase, we pass Aragorn over to the other player, who then resets their threat using Aragorn's ability. Then, during the refresh phase, we play Peace and Thought, exhausting Aragorn and Boromir. Draw 5. We get another Peace and Thought, so that's good for our card draw outlook. Okay, give Aragorn back and start the next turn. Okay, so we've got some sneak attack, Gandalf, but we really want... well, we actually have to flip Thoradir back over and deal out shadow cards. What we really want is to get Boromir ranged, and we also want him to get Burning Brand, because the shadows in this quest are particularly nasty. Okay, so we'll exhaust Bearvor so that this player can draw 2, hopefully getting into a Burning Brand. And they do. So now we can spend 1 resource to play Song of Wisdom, and then Good Harvest and Brand to play Good Harvest, and then use up our remaining resources to play Brand. So now Boromir looks like he's in a solid position. I can start playing some attachments on him. I would have liked to see a Gondorian shield a lot earlier than this, so that I don't have to keep wasting resources on Blood and Numenor. Can't get the Dunedain cash out yet. Don't have enough resources on Theodred. So we'll just have to ready ourselves, commit to the battle quest. Unfortunately, we don't have Light of Valinor yet, so our threat has to go up by 1 when we commit Glorfindel. But it's not a big deal. We're not really using his attack for anything. Alright, so we commit Theodred and Boromir, putting the resource on trying to decide here. If I put it on Theodred, then I'll be able to sneak attack this round and still be able to play Dunedain Cash next round. So that's what I want to do. Okay, and we play sneak attack Gandalf, reduce our threat by 5. Alright. And our total questing looks like it's going to be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We reveal Heavy Curse. Everybody gets a shadow, and it surges. So this is still the first card. Second card. Third card, it surges into a 4th card. Really a 5th card, because we got 2 surges this round. So you'll notice I'm actually revealing 3 cards around. And we've got quite a lot of threat up there. 14. But it's not going to be worth boosting up Boromir's attack by 1 just to save ourselves a threat. I'd prefer to keep those resources for something else. Alright. So, Asfal clears the lowest resources for something else. Alright. So, Asfal clears the location and it turns into a regular quest. And I believe I have slightly more willpower. I've got 15 willpower. So now we succeed by 1. And we could even increase that a little bit with Eowyn if we wanted. Okay. So there are certain enemies we have to engage, some we don't. Everyone's got plus 10 engagement cost because of Thaurdir's captain side. So we're going to optionally engage one enemy, and we get to trigger Captain of Gondor for that. And then we will just let the orc grunts engage us automatically. So the spirit player is not going to optionally engage anyone. The reason for that is Boromir's not got enough resources to kill anything this round, so we're just going to wait. So Captain of Gondor boosts his attack up by 1, and I've got to raise my threat 5 times to defend those 5 attacks, which I just did. And I ignore all the shadows because I've got Burning Brand now. So that turn right there probably would have ended the game if it weren't for Burning Brand. So for certain quests like Carn you need to make that a priority. Okay, and now Boromir's 3 attack plus 1 from Captain of Gondor plus 1 from the Blade of Gondolin means he can kill those little orc grunts. So that's all I'm doing there, and I get 1 progress for that. Okay, refresh phase again. We exhaust Barivor and Boromir, draw 5. New round. All right. So the buffs are gone now. We'll play Gaining Strength on Boromir. And Wealth of Gondor as well. So we have to be careful with all these cards because we have Heavy Curse in play. So I actually forgot to pay an extra resource for Peace and Thought, which I'll correct in a minute. Peace and Thought should have cost 2 resources because I played 1 before, so there's 1 in my discard. But for Wealth of Gondor and Gaining Strength, I did not have 1 in my discard. Same with Duna and Cash, so let's take a look at the discard. This is an easy card to... Heavy Curse is an easy... hard card to keep track. Take a look at the discard. This is an easy card to... Heavy Curse is an easy... hard card to keep track of. There we go. So I'll pay my 1 extra, which I did have for Peace and Thought. Alright, luckily we seem to be set up so not many more cards actually have to get played. At this point, it's all about just keeping our threat low. So we'll commit just Theodred, give himself a resource, for 1, and then Eowyn 5, Aragorn 7, Glorfindel 10, and Arwen 12. And we cannot sneak attack Gandalf in because sneak attack right now costs 2 resources. So we'll just have to reveal our 3 cards. We can always boost our willpower by a couple if we need to. Thanks to Eowyn, sorry. Alright. If I wanted to use up a lot of Boromir's resources, I could play Gandalf full cost. But I really don't like having Gandalf in my discard pile for this quest because there's a treachery that... there's a couple treacheries that punish you for that. One of them deals a damage to your characters for the highest cost card in your discard pile, and there's another one that discards your allies from play that have a copy in the discard pile. Oh, there it is right there. Okay. Now, there are no allies in our discards, so we're fine. But we do have to do the Doom 2 and deal out the shadow cards to all the enemies. First we deal it to Thourdir, who then flips. And then Boromir will defend that attack. He gets dealt an extra shadow card for that attack, but we get to ignore all 4 of them. Okay, and the other enemies should get a shadow card as well from that. Okay, and we reveal the 3rd card, which is another location. So 12 versus 17, that's not good. We'll exhaust Asphaloth, put 2 progress on the walls, but that won't really help our willpower much. We'll discard a couple cards to Eowyn. That'll get us up to 14, so we raise our threat by 3 each. Definitely not ideal. Alright, so we've got a lot of enemies to deal with here, but I think this is going to be a pretty solid turn. We travel to that location, deal each enemy and play a shadow card, and we actually run out of shadow cards. But that's not really an issue. Dealing all the enemies an extra shadow card doesn't really hurt us that much because of Burning Brand. It does make Thourdir a little closer to flipping again, but I'd rather get that threat out of the staging area. Alright, so I give myself +5 attack and +4 defense, in addition to the Captain of Gondor. Okay, I give myself another 3 attack, because I just realized that Werewolf needs 10 attack to destroy. Now, we already raised our threat by 6 to defend all those attacks. And now we also have ranged, so we can raise our threat by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And what we're going to do here is, instead of raising the Boromir's player's threat by 6, we're going to raise the Spirit player's threat by 6. Because we have Song of Yarendil in play. Or maybe just 5 to get to 48. Or was it 4? Yeah, I think it was 4 to get to 48, so that at the refresh phase, the Spirit player can reduce their threat with Aragorn. Okay, and Boromir's Blade of Gondolin triggers 6 times. We get to clear the active and place 3 progress on the quest. Okay, now the Spirit player, the Aragorn player, lowers their threat. So Aragorn's ability says once per game, but it's actually once per game per player. So we already gave him to the Boromir player to reduce their threat, but Spirit player gets to reduce their threat too. Okay. Alright, the buffs are gone. And looks like we are well in control of the board state here. We've only got one location in play, which Asphalloth can take care of. So let's just go ahead and quest. We'll give our resource from Theodred to the Spirit player. Maybe we forgot to do that. No, I did. I added it to Glorfindel, I think. Alright. So, I forgot to flip Thourdir, which I think I will realize here. Yeah, he should have been flipped and dealt a shadow card from flipping, and now he's dealt another shadow card from that sorcery effect. So now he hits 3 again and makes an attack, gets dealt a 4th. Boromir buffs up his defense. Now, if I had gotten a shield at some point, I could have just taken a damage. I'd be at 5 defense. Okay, Thourdir flips. Alright. No damage dealt. Second card. Blight of Carn Doom. Third card, Surging Orcs. Alright. Glorfindel clears the fortress walls. And we count up the threat in the staging area. Not too bad. Just 9. So we will make 5 progress. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But we can discard 1 here and 1 from the other player here. I guess I'll discard my Warden, or possibly not, because I don't know. Alright. Whoops, I think I placed 2 progress from that card. I think I only should have placed 1 progress. Alright, so that Elrond's Council puts us over the edge. So I think I accidentally put 1 extra progress on there. Not a big deal. That progress would have been placed anyway from Boromir attacking an enemy. So or we could have, I guess, quested with Boromir for that 1 extra willpower, and our threat would just be 1 higher. So yeah, what I think I did is I discarded 1 from Eowyn and put a progress on there, and then discarded 1 from the tactics player, and didn't realize I had already put the progress on from the spirit player and put up 2. Alright. But yeah, essentially we could have just left the active location there in the staging area and used Boromir to clear out the last stage. Doesn't really impact too much. Boromir defends 3 times, threat goes up 3, and actually defends a 4th time because Thaldir attacks all players each turn. And then he'll boost himself up and take care of those 2 enemies. So actually, maybe he won't need to, because we've got Glorfindel ready on the other side. So Boromir himself can take care of the grunts, and then Boromir plus Glorfindel plus Blade of Gondolin plus Captain of Gondor equals 8. So we don't have to spend our resource. Yeah. Alright, so 2 progress from those guys. Alright. Now that Heavy Curse is gone, we can finally play our cards that we've been waiting to play. So we got Wealth of Gondor, which is useless with Heavy Curse in play. It just gains 1 resource and loses 1 resource. I guess you could use it to shift a resource from Theodred to Boromir if you wanted. But we can also sneak attack now, which is really nice. Alright. Want to try to be done this quest phase this round. So we're going to need a lot of willpower. We're going to get Gandalf out in the quest phase to help with that. Alright. We can squeeze out a little more willpower if we need to. Let's see, we've got... we have an Amphalas Herdsman in the Spirit player's hand that could potentially get played if we want to. We'll just count up our willpower, see where we're at, and see if we need to... We'll have needed to play anything else. So our 21 versus 4, we need to make 15 progress. The Boromir can make progress as well. And we can discard to Eowyn. We're going to play down Favor the Valar just for fun. Yeah, so I haven't actually entered the questing phase yet. I'm just kind of... It's helping me keep track of my... how much willpower I'm going to need. Alright. Okay, we got ourselves up to 23. Should be plenty, unless we reveal some high threat locations. Alright, Doom 2. Each player's threat goes up by 2. And... We've got to discard any allies that have the copy in their discard pile. So this is why it's good that we didn't play Gandalf before. And whenever sorcery gets revealed, Thaldir makes an immediate attack. So Boromir is going to ready himself and defend that attack, ignoring the shadow effect. Oh, we got another sorcery. So ready Boromir and defend the attack again. You're supposed to resolve the when revealed effects first, but it's not really important here. Random discard, not mulligan. Random discard. I lose my tomb. And all other copies of the tomb. And in the other player's hand, I lose Gandalf. And all other copies of Gandalf. So it's kind of good that it happened in that order. Otherwise, I would have lost Gandalf. Now our third card, will it be a third sorcery? No, just a location. So we're looking at 8 threat in the staging area. We'll use Asphalloth to, I guess, clear the active. If we're looking to win this round, we don't really care about getting progress on the fortress walls. So we'll clear that. So 23 minus 8 is going to be 15 progress exactly. Now it didn't. We had other ways of getting more willpower. Eowyn could have got us up to 17 progress, and then Boromir is going to get us up to 1 more progress when he kills Thaldir. Of course, he would only kill Thaldir if there were already 15 progress on the active quest. So that's kind of a moot point. Alright, we get ourselves 15 attack and plus 3 defense. So with Arwen, that'll be plus 4 defense, 6 defense. We can handle the attacks from Thaldir. For some reason, the card can't show all those tokens, so we're going to just reorganize them there. Okay. So yeah, I've got total of 4 plus 4 defense plus 15 attack. Shadow attack, attack from Thaldir against the first player. We defend. We ready Boromir. Ignore the shadow. Ready him again. Now he attacks the second player. And we get to ignore the shadow again. Finally, he readies, puts himself up at 49. Of course, we could be using the other deck with Song of Eärendil to balance out this threat raise, but there's no need to. It's actually in our best interest in terms of getting a high score to threat out with the tactics player so that favor the Valar triggers. Alright, that's more than enough damage. And he loses indestructible. We get to trigger the Blade of Gondolin. Just for fun. Alright. Now, before we make that attack, we can reduce our threat by 6 for a slightly better score. And you see this player is at 34. And this player, by readying Boromir, gets to 50, drops down to 45. So we still had many, many exhaustions for Boromir available. With both players taking the threat, we could do 5 more times from this deck, and 16 more times from the other deck before they thread out. In addition to, like, we still have Gandalf's to play, we have more Galadrim's Greetings and Elrond's Counsels to play, more Favor of the Valors to play. So we haven't even been close to exhausting our threat reduction at this point. So there you have it. That just goes to show the power of Boromir when you really focus absolutely everything on just powering him up to the maximum he can be as quickly as possible. You can take on 3-player Carn, one of the hardest quests, a whole extra player. So you could just bring another deck that just sits there and does nothing and still beat Carn 3-player. You could bring a Dory, Spirit Pippin, Dwellin deck that has like all lore cards in it, and your other 2 decks would be able to make up for that horrible deck, just based on how well they work together. So I wanted to give you guys a picture of what the decks looked like, because it can be kind of hard to understand how they work together just by watching a single video. It helps maybe if I explain what to do in different circumstances, different quests. These 2 decks are meant to be all-around decks that can complete pretty much every quest out there. So not all of them are going to be like Carn. In fact, Carn is kind of out of the ordinary in terms of quests because it starts as a battle. And most quests you're going to need lots of willpower. So here's what they look like. I normally start the Boromir deck as player 1 and the Aragorn deck as player 2. Just in case you don't get a Sentinel out on your first turn, it helps to have the Boromir player as player 1 so that they can optionally engage one of the enemies, and then the second enemy will also engage them. So you can often survive the first turn without Sentinel. But really, that is what I'm looking for in my mulligan. I'm looking for one of 3 Dunedain Signals or one of 3 Arwens. And in fact, that's the main reason I've chosen Éowyn as a hero over Arwen. Arwen would be fantastic as a hero in this deck. She could give her resources to herself or to Aragorn. But I found that getting that first turn Sentinel up can be very crucial. And I don't want to have to rely on just the Dunedain Signals in this deck. If you wanted to try reworking it, maybe putting some Dunedain Watchmen and the Master of the Forge in this deck, you actually might be able to reliably get up Sentinel by turn 2 by finding that signal. But I found, Éowyn's not a bad hero at all. Arwen, in addition to providing Sentinel, provides her +1 defense to Boromir, so that if you don't get the shield up on the first turn, you still got a solid 3 defense. So all in all, I decided on Éowyn over Arwen. Now this deck also has some strong and cheap willpower, Ether Swordsman and Flask Herdsman. You just play them. That's probably the simplest part of the deck. Blood of Numenor is meant to go on Boromir. Gondor and Fire is in this deck over here. Song of Eärendil you play on the Aragorn deck, and you can essentially turn a Boromir's threat raise into an Aragorn player's threat raise. So you have the pool of both decks to fuel Boromir, and not just once but twice, because Aragorn can reset his own deck's threat, and you can also pass him to the other deck with Desperate Alliance and use the other deck's and reset the other deck's threat. And of course, just a ton of threat reduction. 3 greetings, 3 tombs, 3 councils, and then in this deck we have 3 favor the Valars, 3 sneak attacks, and 3 Gandalfs. You're going to need all that threat reduction for all the Doom cards you're going to be playing. Although I have been testing these 2 decks mostly against 3-player mode, where you reveal 3 encounter cards per turn. And so it's possible that the amount of threat reduction I put in the deck was based upon revealing that many extra cards, and it maybe isn't needed. So if you're planning to play this in just 2-player mode, then you might find that you can take out some of the threat reduction for other cards. There are a couple cards in the sideboard, which is not appearing here, but the sideboard is mainly, in this deck, it's just got Ethelis and Waters of Nimrodel, which are healing cards, and that's really just meant for Journey to Rosgabel, or perhaps a quest that just has a ton of archery damage. Like, if you wanted to try to take this up against, say, 3-player Druidan Forest, then you're just going to get a ton of archery, even 2-player. And you might find Waters of Nimrodel really helpful there. But yeah, mainly there for Journey to Rosgabel. And this deck just has Power of Orthanc in the sideboard, and you can, and that's for quests with nasty condition attachments. So particularly this last Agmar Awaken cycle, it's a very good card for that. But I didn't actually need to swap it in for Carn Doom, but you might want it for Dread Realm. You can see the sideboards by clicking on the links here to go to the individual decks. And by the time this video is put up, I'm going to have a description here for how to work both of the decks together. And then if you click on the individual decks here, you'll get a summary of how that particular deck is supposed to work. Obviously, Test of Wills, there to cancel the nasty treacheries. Other cards I like to get out early. I will often, if I do find the signal with this deck, I'll often try to mulligan for Burning Brand or Song of Wisdom or Master of the Forge in this deck, because getting up the brand on Boromir is important in a lot of quests. I mean, it's something to decide for yourself based on the shadow cards that you're facing, but typically Boromir will be defending, 4+ enemies around. You really want to avoid the shadow effects. Alright, Elven Light, you discard to Eowyn. It provides a little more card draw. We Are Not Idle is in here, even though I don't have dwarves, because you can actually play it without a dwarf and exhaust 0 dwarves and just draw 1 card. Okay, I think everything else here is pretty straightforward. Dunedain Cache is the only way in these decks, 2 decks, to get ranged on Boromir. So oftentimes this comes out a bit later, like turn 4 or 5 or something. So in the meantime, you just have Boromir defend the attacks made against this player, and just wait for that. Wait for the cache to come out. Blade of Gondolin, I guess, is worth a mention here. So it's not, the primary purpose is not to provide Boromir with plus attack. you gain that just by playing Steward of Gondor on him, and then Gondorian Fire and Blood of Numenor provide, potentially unlimited attack and defense. Bladed Gondolins are here for the quest progress. It can be enormously helpful if you've got, say, for example, a active location that is going to punish you severely at the end of the round. You travel to it, and then Boromir kills a bunch of stuff and completes that location, removing it from play before the end of the round. It's also helpful for quests like Battle of the Five Armies, because there's so much in that quest that'll remove progress from the active quest and then punish you at the end of the round for not having progress on the quest. So here you can, right at the end of the combat phase, kill a bunch of enemies, place a bunch of progress on the quest, and avoid that penalty. That pretty much sums up the decks, but I would recommend checking out the links under the YouTube video to go to this page and check out the description that I'll put up, and please leave a comment on the deck. Thanks for watching, and happy questing.